Throughout The Sopranos, Paulie can be known as a stone-cold gangster. Although his commitment to being a loyal gangster comes into question throughout the series on numerous occasions, despite all of this, others truly know him as a complete scumbag, a cheapo, and will do anything and everything that benefits himself. And this even means killing women. However, while the Mafia is known to kill everyone and anyone who gets in their way, there are some exceptions. Many believe that women and children are off limits when it comes to the Mafia, and we do actually see this in The Sopranos towards the series' ending.
We should split up. You and the kids go, I'll be somewhere else.
Oh my God!
Now look, families don't get touched, you know that,
However, even with this rule that comes with La Cosa Nostra, why does Paulie still commit this act of violence when he kills his supposed mother's friend, Min? While Paulie did this solely to make it up to Tony by bringing him a fat envelope, if anyone were to ever find out about him murdering Min, there would be some serious consequences. For starters, this is his mother's friend. So for one of her friends to stop showing up for events like bingo or dinner would just be odd. Also, if Tony ever found out that Paulie committed this murder, there's no question that he would be upset, as women and children are off limits when it comes to murder within the Mafia, and 2, murdering a woman makes Tony's crew and Paulie be viewed in a shameful way. It's embarrassing, sad, atrocious, and disrespectful to the Mafia. It makes Tony's crew look disgraceful and inhuman, and seriously makes Paulie look weak and immoral for having to resort to murdering an elderly lady to score big when kicking up to his boss. And in the 9th episode of Season 6, titled The Ride, we see another disgraceful version of Paulie Walnuts. First, when he skimps out on safety during the carnival ride for the Feast of St. Elzir, that results in Janice and her daughter Sophia getting injured. In this episode, Paulie is under a lot of scrutiny, whether it's the ride breaking down and having a beef with Bobby, having the worries of being diagnosed with prostate cancer that is lingering in the back of his mind, and on top of all this, Paulie has an ongoing beef with his mother. So towards the end of this episode, we see Paulie pay a visit to his mother late at night. This scene is haunting, eerie, suspenseful, and just downright creepy. We know that the last time Paulie was alone in a room with an elderly woman was when he was with Min and he murdered her. So as soon as Paulie enters the room to visit his mother, this thought immediately goes into the viewer's mind, and that is the thought of him coming over to kill his mother. We also hear this creepy sound coming from the television, which just adds to the tension within the scene. So would Paulie actually have killed his own mother? I believe so. For one, Nucci isn't even Paulie's real mother, so he has no real connection to her. And as we all know, the fact that Paulie has murdered an elderly woman before definitely means he can do it again. With Paulie constantly stressing out over Nucci's payments at Green Grove, having her whacked would mean he wouldn't have to pay her bills anymore. As well as Paulie could just use the furniture inside Nucci's apartment to sell and make a profit for himself. And as we all know, Paulie is super cheap, so he could just use the money for himself and not give it to Tony at all. If Paulie were to go forward murdering his mother just like what he did with Min, it wouldn't be the first time the Mafia has murdered a woman. As we saw this in The Sopranos, where Lorraine Lady Shylock Caluzzo was murdered after she was refusing to pay Johnny Sack directly, as Lorraine was one of the rare cases of a mafiosa, a female mobster, and she was the only one of 2 female mobsters to get whacked. As the other mafiosa was Annalisa Zucca, a mafia boss back in Italy, which we saw earlier on in the series. And of course, we also saw this when Tony had ordered the murder of Adriana, as Adriana was a rat and a total threat to Tony, but also to everyone else in the family. And the murder was also ordered by Tony to have Christopher get pushed away from the love of his life and more towards Tony and the family. We also saw the Mafia murder women in real life as well, with the first example being Tamara Rand, who was an investor who loaned a casino operator named Alan Glick $500,000. However, Glick was actually a frontman for the Mafia back in Las Vegas, and Glick embezzled the money and Rand threatened to sue Glick in court. And as a result, Rand was shot in her home in an attempt to silence her. We actually saw this storyline get recreated in Martin Scorsese's film Casino. There's also the case of Teresa Ferrara, who was the girlfriend of Tommy DeSimone, who of course was the infamous mobster played by Joe Pesci in Goodfellas. It was rumored that DeSimone may have told Ferrara about the Lufthansa heist, and as a paranoid Jimmy Burke would do, he had her whacked. There's also a few more examples of women being murdered by the mafia, as we saw in Goodfellas when Jimmy tries to get Karen killed. Looking back on Paulie murdering Min, it's almost as if he had to kill her. While he breaks into her home, his only intention and purpose for being there was simply to rob her. I mean, why else would he break in? As Min even calls him out, saying that he was there to rob her. If Paulie didn't whack her, she would definitely tell her friends at Green Grove and embarrass Nucci, and also possibly tell the Green Grove staff. That could have resulted in Paulie being banned from future visits, or even worse, having to transfer his mother. What do you think? I would love to hear your thoughts about this down in the comment section below. For more Sopranos content, keep it locked here, right here on this channel.